Hi everyone, and welcome to the introduction of animation. Now, animation, I personally think, is the most wonderful forms of expressing yourself through the visual art medium. So you have painting, you have sculpting, you have drawing, and those are the three basics of the visual arts world. Now, from that, a lot of things can be derived and brought forth from those three. And I believe animation is amazing because it's this hybrid between film and drawing and painting, and there is no other medium like it in the world. It's a moving comic book. It's like a live action, but anything can go at any moment. And there's nothing especially like traditional animation. So we're going to start off with some basic vocabulary that you need to know in order to really get the most out of these classes. Because what we're going to do is we're going to move very quickly, and we're going to move from the very first concept all the way to the last concept. And there's 12 principles of animation that were taken from The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. And they didn't, let me just say this, every animator has built upon what these artists have done. And Walt Disney did not invent animation, but he did kind of define what animation was. And so we are using Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston's book as a beginning basis for the class. Now let's take a look first. We have to look into animation is a medium that involves technology, involves for the most part electricity. So we have a very interesting, usually if you want to sculpt, there's a minimal amount of technology there. If you want to paint, again, a minimal amount of technology, but drawing, really could be just dirt, drawing with a stick. But once you move into film, in the genre of art, you start moving into a place where now you are working from a place that is considered very high tech, in the sense that you have to have electricity, you have to have certain mechanical things working and processing in order to see an animated movie and produce an animated movie many times. Now, this vocabulary, don't forget, it's like a language. You have to learn this language in order to speak and understand someone speaking this language. So we're going to take a look at frame rate. And most animation, remember, we're starting, because animation is so broad. You have anime, you have 3D animation, you have motion graphics, you have stop motion and claymation, and just everything in between, and pixelation. So we're going to use as a basis traditional animation as taught by the Disney Studios, or as done by the Disney Studios, especially going into the 1920s, 30s, 40s, all the way up to very recently. And then we're kind of going to stop a little bit at the breakthrough of the computer graphics, because things change a little bit. Not so much. You can still apply all of these things to CG and to vector animation and all of this stuff, but you're going to see where terms a little bit, things change a little bit. So, okay, so first of all, the first part of learning this language is to know your frame rate. We have 24 frames a second, and that's going to be our standard in this class. 24 frames a second. Basically, those old movie cameras that moved like this meant that that frame was going in front of the light. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those square ones going in front of the light 24 times in 1 second. And you see those old where they're rolling the film like that, okay? So the standard started becoming 24 frames a second. So it made sense, 24 frames a second, because you can divide that. It's easily divisible by 2. So we have a sheet that we give to you that has all of those numbers. So for instance, if you want to do 2 seconds of animation, and it's 24 frames a second, you would multiply 24 times 2. Now, I'm not a great mathematician. I'm really not. So I keep it very handy, and plus I've been doing these numbers for a while, so I'm kind of familiar. So if you can remember, 1 second is 24 frames, 2 seconds is 48 frames, and 3 seconds is 72 frames. That'll give you a good idea. Okay. It goes on and on, more and more seconds. It's good to know how many frames you have, but also the timing. If you think you're going to do a drawing with 7 frames in it and you want the character to stay on for about 4 or 5 seconds on screen, well, that's not going to work. You need at least 72 frames, right? That's why student animators are so surprised when all of a sudden they look at the animation, it goes doop, 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 and it's over. You need to time it out. You need to think. 24 frames in 1 second could be 24 drawings per 1 second. So start thinking in 24 frames. Modern games and sometimes movies and things like that can be up to 60 frames or even more. That would kill us as animators to do 60 frames per second. And it's not necessary, to be honest. And I've seen a lot of the Tom and Jerry cartoons and great cartoons that people have told me, oh, you gotta see it in 60 frames per second. It wasn't meant to be in 60 frames per second. It's 24 frames per second. So that's a 24 frames per second. FPS, we call it, frames per second. Ooh, so you're already sounding like an animator. The next part is ones and twos. Ones and twos. Now, you have 24 frames in 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 24 frames going by in 1 second. So you can shoot on ones, and that means 1 drawing per 1 frame. So 24 frames, 24 drawings. That's shooting on ones. You can shoot on twos, which means that for every 2 frames you see 1 drawing. So if it's 12 frames, half a second, right? 24 frames per second. 1 second is 24 frames. A half a second would be 12 frames. If you're shooting on ones, that means if you do 12 frames, it will take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 drawings to get from here to there. I have this handy little spider to help me out here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 frames for it to move like this. But now if I'm shooting on twos, that means I have 2 frames per 1 drawing. So now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's only 6 drawings. So animators have been doing this for a long time to save a lot of time and effort. So if you're shooting on twos, it takes less drawings. Now the drawing isn't as smooth. This is 1 frame and 1 drawing. It's very smooth, very, very smooth. But if you're doing on twos, 2 frames per 1 drawing, it could be the same speed, but it won't be as smooth. Now some people don't even discern it and can't even see that. But as you start getting an eye for it, you'll be able to see it. So twos, if you're shooting on twos, which is the norm of animation, most people, there are some people, crazy people like Richard Williams, who likes to shoot a lot of his stuff on ones. A lot of animators, including myself, don't even like the way that looks. And you can take a look. Go to Google, go to YouTube, and see what it looks like on ones. It's very smooth, it's very flowy, and it's very swimmy, is what we call it. It looks like they're underwater because everything's moving all the time. It's a nice effect, but it gets tiresome to see it. It doesn't have that zip that shooting on twos does. So ones is generally used for things that move very fast. If you have a fast movement, a hit, bam, you're going to put that on ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bam. if you want a subtle kind of gesture of something like slowly moving, like that, that's going to be on 2s. You can do it on 2s. Now it all depends on you, and it's all the acting. Fast movement, like a really fast walk cycle, will be on 1s. But a really fast run cycle where you're running is going to be on, because it's fast, it's going to be on 1s, right? 1 is for fast movement. Shooting on 2s is for slower movement, like a slow walk. A slow walk will be on 1s, 2s. See, even I get confused. 1s for fast movements, 2s for normal movements, okay? And you'll experiment, you'll see that we have a test that goes with that. So that's some of the vocabulary. Frames per second, 1s or 2s.